Hello, my data friends. You're welcome to another exciting episode where we dissect and talk about Python. So, in the previous video, we went through installation of Jupyter Anaconda Notebook from scratch, and today we are going to begin to explore the Python Jupyter Notebook interface and also begin introduction on coding. If you're watching this video for the first time, please, I need you to subscribe to our channel. So today we're going to explore the Jupyter Notebook interface and then dive into Python programming from scratch, right? And so this is the Python Notebook interface, right? So the Python Notebook interface has two cells majorly, the code cell and the markdown cell. Now, the code cell is where you write your codes that gets executed, and then the markdown cell is where you make documentation, basically. This is the code cell, and then we have this as a markdown cell. Yeah. So, with that being done, let's begin our first line of code in Python Notebook. And of course, we're going to write it in the code cell, and then we just print hello world. And we execute. And we have our code run and without error, right? And then let's also explore the markdown cell. So the markdown cell, you basically just want to write, we just started programming in Python. Yeah, so that's just it. So it's your use it for documentation. Yeah, so now we are going to begin to dive in into Python variables, right? Yeah, so because we're going to be working with data, and then we have to be able to understand how we reference items in our data or in our code, right? And with Yeah, so according to Geeks for Geeks, a variable is a container for storing data, right? And then there are key components that you need to have to declare a variable, right? So your variable must have a name, an assigner or assignment operator, and then the value to be stored inside, right? So you need a name for your variable, the operator. So the operator is equals to the name is name of what you want, what the variable will be accessed with. And then you have and then you have um your value, right? So the value of your variable, what is contained. Yeah. these are key essentials for successfully declaring your variable, right? So let's declare a variable and say maybe we want to take data of students, right? And we want to know the students course. Yeah, so the course is the name, the assignment operator is the assigner, right? The equals to is the assignment operator, and then we want to say he's studying data science. And when we run, so now this value data science has been stored in this item name or this variable name course. So wherever we call course, we are this is the value that is being displayed or referenced, right? Yeah. So let's say we want to display the content of course. So we use the print and call on this name, right? Because we want to display what is inside. So and I call on course and we run. You see that it displays data science, right? Now you might be wondering, initially when we printed hello world, I had hello world quoted, right? And now I'm printing course and it's not quoted, right? So this here, it's you giving it the content, like you're giving it, I need you to display what I'm writing in here, and that's why we quoted. And again, because it's a string data type, we'll move on to that later. And here I'm printing course without the quotation mark is because I need to reference the content that is in course, right? So we've already declared what course is. We just need to reference the content that is there. Yeah, so that's it. And now, one thing to know about variables, Python variables, is that they are case sensitive, right? So when a variable, say for instance, we have course in with the first letter in uppercase, you can't access course in lowercase all letters. It will throw an error. So let's give it a try. So let's try to print course. And you see it throws an error saying name course is not defined, because it has looked through the whole memory and doesn't find anything assigned with this name course in lowercase, because variables in Python are case sensitive. Yeah, so you will need to always pay attention when naming your variables, right? Or when referencing your variables. Yeah. And again, so after that we have naming conventions. So they are sort of rules or regulations guiding how you name your variables, right? So, or those one of those rules is that you don't start naming your variable with a number, right? So let's try naming our variable 2 equals to, so maybe we are saying second 2, and then we give it maybe a value a, right? and you see it displays an error, invalid decimal literal, right? So you don't start naming your variable with number, right? And again, another naming convention is that you should not use Python reserved keywords. Yeah, so Python reserved keywords such as true, um, float. Python reserved keywords cannot be used as variable name, right? But because Python is case sensitive, then you can change the case, right? So because true starts with uppercase true, you see that it's a reserved keyword, and right? But because Python is case sensitive, then you can change the case, right? So because true starts with uppercase true, you see that it's a reserved keyword, and you see it's displayed in green already. But let's say we now decide to put this, so it ignores it. But then I don't see the reason why you will necessarily need to use a reserved keyword and go through the stress. So yeah, but then if you must, then you can always change the casing. And another naming convention why you should know is that variables can start with um characters. So any character, just as we did with course, it can start with character. And variables can also be alphanumeric. So let's say we can do course 1, right? Provided the number is not the first character, is not the first character in um in the variable name, it's fine. So let's say we run this course 1, you see that it runs, and if we display to reference it, yeah, it's still the same thing. So variables can be alphanumeric with lower. So you can start your variables with underscore. The underscore, then with anything, right? So you see that it runs, and so let's reference it. Yeah, so it runs. And another very essential thing to pay attention to when naming your variables is you should name your variables in such a way that is understandable by you. You get, so you should give it relevant name. So for instance, let's say in my code line, I have my variables named something like this, like all my variables are with these very confusing names. It will be very difficult for me to understand later if I have to come to the code line, or if I have to collaborate with someone, right? It will be very difficult for that person to be able to understand what is going on there. So if you are naming a variable, if the variable is age, like has to do with age, or maybe in a student kind of data you're collecting, ensure that the names of the variables are relevant to the um content, like are meaningful and aligns with the value you get, so that it's easier for you. So it's easier for me to say student name is Ayo, course offered is data science, duration of course is 3 months. You see, that way is very easier to understand, right? Yeah, so that's it. And with that, we will go next to data types. So data types. And again, we'll change this cell to markdown because it's not going to be a code. Yeah, so yeah, so in Python we have four major data types. We have the number, we have in the numbers we have the floats, and then we have integers, right? So numbers are treated in two different ways. We have floats, which are decimal points numbers. Then we have integer, they are whole numbers. And then we also have strings. So strings are character data type, and special characters. Yeah, right. Yeah, and then we have Boolean data types. Yeah. So Booleans basically are true or false data types. Yeah, so these are the data types in uh, Python. Yeah. And so let's try to create. Now we've discussed variables, and then we're going to discuss data types. So we're going to declare variables that matches each data type, right? So let's, for instance, we will start with floats. So we are declaring, so let's declare a variable decimal point number. Yeah, because I said that variable names has to be specific so that we don't get confused, right? So yeah, so our assignment operator is equal to, right? Yeah, so we're saying that in this container named decimal point number, assign this value to it. So let's give it 30.75, right? And then we call on our print um function to print this for us. Yeah, and then we see that it's displayed 30.75, right? Then we also declare another variable um for integer, so say whole number. Then we can give it 700, and then when you run, you see it has run without displaying any error, right? And then we um declare a float, so we check true and false, right? So you see what I did with, I said true and false are true, false are Python reserved keywords, right? But the way I've combined them together makes Python to ignore it and say, okay, this is safe to be used as a variable name, right? So if you need to use any reserved Python keywords as a variable name, then you should be able to find a way around it, right? So true, I think I should use true or false. Well, true, false. So we give it false and run. Yeah, it's it's run. And then for string, which we say they are character based data types, so we want to check um number, no, so the course name equals to data science. Yeah, so let's print for each case, print. Okay, so let's run all cells. Yeah, so if you need to run your entire notebook, you can just go to run, click run all cells, and so we see that it has printed 30.75, 700 false, and data science. Again, now you might be wondering, why did I declare course name with quotes while other data types? So why did I declare string data type with quotation, and then other data types are not quoted, right? So strings are treated specially, and then you have to quote them to tell the to show that they are strings, and then if not, they will throw an error, right? So when you're declaring a string data type, it has to be quoted. And again, other data types can actually be manipulated to be treated as strings, right? So all you need to do is just quote it, and then it's now going to be treated as a string and not that data type. So for first of, let us use the type function to confirm our data type, right? So let's say you are working on a huge sum of data, and then you want to find out for each data type, or for each entry, or for each year's collection, the kind of data type that is stored in that collection, right? So there's a function called type. So you call it like this, type with curly bracket, just the way you do print, but then in this case it's type instead of print. Yeah, and then your variable name, or whatever you this thing, and then we run, and you see that it has shown that the data type is a float, right? Yes, so let's now manipulate this same data, this 30.75, which is displayed as a float, to a string data type. So we'll say float to string, right? Equals to, so our value now, so now we quote it 30.75, and then when you run it, it runs. And then let's check the type. So well, type Mm-hmm. So type for float string, and then we run. We see that it has been converted to a string data type, right? Yeah, so that's how you manipulate other data types to behave as string. Now, you might be asking, why do we need to manipulate it to behave as a string? Maybe you're working with a collection where you don't want the mathematical operations to work on them, right? Or there are cases where you need to modify certain things, and then you can't treat them as numbers to be able to do that, right? So you have to now convert them to string data type. And if there's need, after you do that, you can still convert back to um whatever data type it previously was. But then just that, so you know that you can manipulate every other data type to behave as a string data type. And with this, we have come to the end of this video. And again, let me remind you, if you have not subscribed, kindly subscribe to this channel. Keep learning, and till we meet again in the next video.